At the turn of the 20th century, before freeways etched their lines across the land and before glass towers caught the morning sun, Denver wakes beneath a wide, pale sky. Dawn arrives quietly, spreading over the plains and climbing the eastern face of the Rocky Mountains. The air is thin and cool, carrying the smell of coal smoke and damp earth. Wooden sidewalks creak as boots step across them. Horses snort in the streets, their breath visible in the chill. This is Denver in 1900, a city balanced on the edge of eras. No longer a raw frontier camp, but not yet fully certain of what it will become. Denver's origins are rooted in ambition and risk. Born out of the Pikes Peak gold rush in 1858, the city exists because people believed wealth lay buried in the soil beyond the plains. By 1900, most of the easy gold is gone, but the city has survived the bust that followed the boom. What remains is a stubborn confidence. Denver has learned that its future does not depend on what can be pulled from the ground alone, but on what can be built upon it. The city has become a regional center for trade, transportation, and governance. Serving a vast stretch of the Rocky Mountain West, Union Station stands at the heart of this transformation. Trains arrive and depart with steady regularity, their whistles echoing across the rail yards. These rails bind Denver to Chicago, St. Louis, and the coasts, shrinking distances that once took months to cross. Passengers step onto the platform carrying trunks, hopes, and letters from faraway places. Freight cars unload goods that make daily life possible, from food and clothing to machinery and building materials. In 1900, the railroad is more than transportation. It is lifeline, bloodstream, and promise. Daily life in Denver at the dawn of the century is shaped by proximity and effort. Most residents live close to their work, often within walking distance. The city is compact, its neighborhoods defined by necessity rather than convenience. Houses are built from brick or wood, practical and sturdy against winter cold and summer heat. Coal stoves glow in kitchens and living rooms, providing warmth but also filling the air with soot. Water must be hauled or carefully rationed, and sanitation is improving but far from modern standards. Comfort exists, but it is earned. Work dominates the rhythm of life. Men labor in rail yards, stockyards, smelters, breweries, and construction sites. Their days are long and physically demanding, marked by noise, heat, and risk. Women manage households, raise children, and take on paid work where they can, often as teachers, clerks, laundresses, or seamstresses. Their labor is essential, though rarely recognized with equal pay or public acknowledgement. Children contribute as well, delivering newspapers, running errands, or helping family businesses. Survival and progress depend on collective effort. The streets of 1900 Denver are alive with motion. Horse-drawn wagons carry goods, while carriages transport families and businessmen across town. Electric streetcars glide along steel tracks, their overhead wires crackling with power. These streetcars represent a glimpse of the future, extending the city outward and shaping new neighborhoods. Travel is slower than it will one day become, but for residents of the time, it feels marvelously modern. The city is learning how to move. Social life in Denver reflects the values and inequalities of its era. Saloons, churches, theaters, and social clubs serve as gathering places, each catering to different segments of the population. Wealthy families build large homes in emerging neighborhoods, hosting dinners and cultural events that signal refinement and status. Working-class families crowd into smaller houses or boarding rooms, their lives defined by tighter margins. Immigrants from Europe, Black Americans seeking opportunity in the West, and Hispanic communities with deep regional roots all contribute to Denver's growth, even as they face discrimination and limited access to power. Nature looms large over the city in 1900. The mountains are both backdrop and boundary, beautiful and imposing. They provide resources, recreation, and identity, but also remind residents of their isolation. Winters are harsh, summers intense, and the land is dry. Water management becomes an early concern, as leaders recognize that growth depends on controlling and distributing a scarce resource. At this moment in time, nature is seen as something to be mastered, shaped to serve human needs. As the years pass, Denver moves through wars, economic upheavals, and periods of reinvention. Industries rise and fall. Neighborhoods expand, contract, and change character. By the early 21st century, the city stands transformed once again, carrying its history into a vastly different world. In 2026, Denver wakes to a very different soundscape. The hum of traffic replaces the clatter of hooves. Airplanes trace invisible paths overhead, descending toward Denver International Airport, one of the busiest hubs on the planet. The skyline stretches upward, reflecting sunlight in glass and steel. Yet the mountains remain, unchanged in their quiet presence, watching over a city that has grown far beyond anything imagined in 1900. Modern Denver is a city of scale and speed. The population has multiplied many times over, spreading across a vast metropolitan region. Suburbs and satellite cities blend into one another, connected by highways and rail lines. People commute not just across town but across counties, their daily journeys shaped by schedules, traffic patterns, and digital navigation. The city's physical footprint tells a story of expansion, ambition, and challenge. Everyday life in 2026 is saturated with technology. Homes are climate-controlled, well-lit, and filled with devices that connect residents instantly to the world. Electricity, once a luxury, is now invisible and essential. High-speed internet carries voices, images, and data across continents in seconds. Work often happens on screens rather than shop floors, with laptops and smartphones replacing tools and machinery for many professions. The boundaries between home and workplace blur in ways unimaginable a century earlier. The economy of modern Denver reflects a shift from extraction and manufacturing to knowledge and innovation. Technology firms, healthcare systems, aerospace companies, renewable energy ventures, and creative industries drive growth. The city attracts entrepreneurs, engineers, artists, and remote workers drawn by lifestyle as much as opportunity. Yet this prosperity brings tension. Housing prices climb, and the cost of living strains many households. The promise of Denver remains powerful, but access to it is uneven. Transportation in 2026 reveals both progress and complexity. Highways slice through the city, carrying thousands of vehicles each hour. Light rail and commuter trains echo the streetcars of 1900, offering alternatives to driving and reconnecting neighborhoods. Bike lanes and pedestrian paths reflect changing attitudes toward mobility and health. At the same time, congestion and pollution challenge planners and residents alike, forcing difficult choices about growth, sustainability, and quality of life. The environment has become one of the defining concerns of modern Denver. Where earlier generations saw nature as something to conquer, today's residents understand its fragility. Drought threatens water supplies, wildfires darken summer skies, and rising temperatures reshape daily life. The city invests in renewable energy, green buildings, and conservation, seeking to balance growth with responsibility. Denver's relationship with the land has shifted from domination towards stewardship, though the outcome remains uncertain. Social structures in 2026 Denver reflect a broader, more complex society. Women hold leadership roles across business, government, and science. Diversity is more visible and more openly discussed, though inequality persists in new forms. Conversations about housing, equity, public safety, and opportunity shape civic life. The city wrestles with how to grow without losing its soul, how to welcome newcomers while honoring those who have long called Denver home. Culturally, Denver thrives on reinvention. Historic buildings are preserved and repurposed, standing alongside sleek new developments. Former industrial areas transform into arts districts, food halls, and innovation hubs. Music, sports, and outdoor recreation define the city's identity, blending urban energy with a deep connection to nature. The past is no longer something to escape, but something to integrate, a foundation for what comes next. Despite the dramatic contrasts between 1900 and 2026, certain truths endure. Denver remains a city shaped by movement, by people arriving with hopes and plans, and by the challenge of building a life in a demanding landscape. It is still a meeting place, where the plains meet the mountains and ideas meet opportunity. The same sun that rose over dirt streets and wooden sidewalks now glints off skyscrapers and solar panels. The story of Denver is, in many ways, the story of modern humanity. In just over a century, a community defined by physical labor and local connections becomes a node in a global network of information and commerce. Tools change, speeds increase, and perspectives widen. But the human desire for security, purpose, and belonging remains constant. Progress brings comfort and possibility, but also new responsibilities and risks. As evening falls over Denver in 2026, lights flicker on across neighborhoods and highways glow with motion. The mountains darken into silhouettes, as they have for centuries. Somewhere beneath the layers of asphalt and concrete, traces of the old city remain, reminders of coal smoke mornings and rail-bound dreams. Denver stands as a living record of time's passage, shaped by countless choices made by ordinary people. In the end, Denver's transformation from 1900 to 2026 is not just a tale of growth or technology. It is a reflection of how societies adapt, how cities learn, and how each generation leaves its mark. The city continues to change, as it always has, carrying forward the hopes of the past while facing the uncertainties of the future. Beneath the open Colorado sky, Denver moves on, a testament to endurance, ambition, and the enduring human drive to build, to belong, and to imagine what comes next.